You said they shouldn't lower interest rates in the past, but last time they often cut too late. Can you explain? I did not say they shouldn't lower interest rates. Interest rates, okay? They were at 0. It was free to borrow money for a very long time. Then we got inflation. So they said, hey, we have to slow this shit down. So they raised them. They raised them fast, like faster than anyone thought possible. Then they had this plan. They said higher for longer. We're going to keep them higher for longer. So they got it up to what, 5.5%? And they've been going like that, okay? And now, tomorrow, they are almost certainly going to cut. And usually they cut when the fight against inflation is over. Now, I'm not quite sure that's real. I'm not quite sure we've beaten inflation. It's totally over. But they also cut to save the economy. So the idea of cutting is that it makes it cheaper to borrow. It stimulates. You can get that credit card a little cheaper. You can get that car a little cheaper. You can get the house a little cheaper. Based on everything he said in the last meeting, labor market cooling, they're going to cut. The big question is, do they do 0.25 or will they go 0.5? And you would say 25 basis points or 50 basis points, but you sound like a nerd when you say that. And obviously they're going to cut again soon after that. And after that, and that's the plan. But the first cut matters because if they do 0.25, it says, hey, things are fine. It's all under control. We're going to do a slight easing here. We've got inflation under control. If they do a 0.5, it says, hey, okay, we got to move fast. Unemployment's rising really fast. We need to get on the ball. Like their data will suggest which one of these to do. If they, for whatever reason, and this won't happen, but if they did a 0.75, it would actually be panic. My guess is tomorrow will be a jumbo rate cut, which will be a 0.5. But I don't know. We'll see. All right, Jerome. Tell us it's all okay, buddy. Yeah. Yeah.
Our economy is strong overall and has made significant progress toward our goals over the past 2 years.
Great.
Today, the Federal Open Market Committee decided to reduce the degree of policy restraint by lowering our policy interest rate by 0.5 percentage point. This
jumbo rate cut. Silk Song,
in the
please.
labor market, conditions have continued to cool.
If he says Silk Song,
inflation has eased notably over the past 2 years, but remains above our longer-run goal of 2%.
Then why are you cutting?
Estimates based on the Consumer Price Index and other data indicate that total PCE prices.
What happened to higher for longer until we break the back?
For much of the past 3 years, inflation ran well above our 2% goal.
Yes.
And labor market conditions were extremely tight.
Yes, great.
We are acutely aware that high inflation imposes significant hardship as it erodes purchasing power, especially for those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials.
Yeah,
like
we can't
food,
afford Taco
housing,
Bell. We can't afford Taco Bell, dude.
Aggregate supply and demand.
Look at the price increases.
We now see the risks to achieving our employment and inflation goals as roughly in balance, and we are attentive to the risks to both sides of our dual mandate. In light of the progress on inflation and the balance of risks at today's meeting,
either way.
We know that reducing policy restraint too quickly could hinder progress on inflation.
Yeah.
At the same time, reducing restraint too slowly could unduly weaken economic activity and employment.
He's saying it. He's
In
saying
considering
we're
additional adjustments to the target range for the federal funds rate, the committee will carefully assess.
He's saying if we cut too fast,
outlook and the balance of
we're going to
risks.
get massive inflation. If
In
we
our
cut too
SEP,
slow,
FOMC
job losses are going to
participants
rise in
will
the
render
millions, and
assessments of an appropriate path for the federal funds rate.
and you got to
Based
thread
on
that
what each
needle, bro.
participant- As the economy evolves, monetary policy will adjust in order to best promote our maximum employment and price stability goals.
0.5
More
cut in
slowly.
December, that's what they're implying, yeah.
In July, you said you weren't necessarily thinking about a 50. You didn't want to be specific, but you said you were thinking about a 50. What changed and made the committee go 50, and how do you respond to the concerns that...
Great question.
The Fed is more concerned about the labor market. And I
Great
guess
question.
We had the QCEW report, which suggests that suggests that the payroll report numbers that we're getting may be artificially high and will be revised down. You
Yeah,
know
they
that.
will. They
We've
will.
also- we went into blackout and we thought about what to do, and we concluded that this was the right thing for the economy, for the people that we serve. And
So you
that's,
looked at all
that's
the
how we made
employment
our
data and
decision.
realized you have to cut
That's
fast.
one. I think we
Ask
don't
him
know.
about
There
Skibbity
are
Toilet. That's
model-based
coming up.
approaches and,
Someone always
and
asks about
empirically-based
Skibbity Toilet,
approaches
and
that
he has a funny
estimate
little dance.
what the
Be
neutral
ready.
rate will be at any given
Zoomers,
time.
don't worry if you're brain
But
rotted. He's going to do a
realistically, we
Skibbity
know it
Toilet
by
thing
its
here in just a
works.
second.
How close was this in terms of the decision? Was the weight clearly in favor of a 50, or was this a very close decision?
I think we had a good discussion.
They argued.
If you go back,
It's not just him making the call. It's like all the Fed governors, right? And they had a meeting. They clearly had a barn burner over whether it should be 0.25 or 0.5, whether it should go slow or fast, do a small one or a jumbo, and they landed on a jumbo. So it's interesting to know why. He's saying it in a roundabout way, but what he's basically saying is like, unemployment is rising. And although we haven't beaten inflation, we've gotten it down to a lower level. And at that point, we have to worry more about unemployment. So we're going to cut. We're going to cut, and we're cutting fast. That's what he's saying. And I think that's a fair thing to say, but I think it's understating the now impossible task they find themselves with.
Would you expect this to be running every other meeting once we get into next year?
There's no sense that the committee feels it's in a rush to do.
This is the boring part of these conversations. I mean, for some of you, this is all boring, but this part is where people try to suss out when the next cut is going to be and what's going to be. He can never answer that and always has to say no. It's so annoying. The reporters all try to figure out, like, okay, so when's the next one, or what's the... And then he has to go, we'll go meeting by meeting. We don't know. Because obviously they need to maintain their ability to surprise people. If everyone knows exactly what's happening ahead of time, then that all gets priced in.
You and your colleagues in your economic projections today see the unemployment rate climbing to 4.4% and staying there. Obviously, historically, when the unemployment rate climbs that much over a relatively short period of time, it doesn't typically just stop. It continues increasing. I wonder if you can walk us through why you see the labor market stabilizing, sort of what's the mechanism there, and what do you see as the
Great
risks?
question. Fantastic question.
So, again, the labor market is actually in solid condition.
Oh, yeah?
And our intention with our policy move today is to keep it there. You can say that about the whole economy. The U.S. economy is in good shape. It's growing at a solid pace. Inflation is coming down. The labor market is in a strong pace. We want to keep it there.
Just in case.
That's what we're doing.
That was not an answer to a question.
Just following up on Gina's question on rising unemployment, is it your view that this is just a function of a normalizing labor market amid improved supply? Or is there anything to suggest that something more concerning perhaps is taking place here, given that other metrics of labor demand have softened too?
You're asking good questions.
And I guess in direct
go,
follow-up to
ladies.
Gina is, why should we not expect a further deterioration in labor market conditions?
Yeah, just point
Policy
blank.
is still restrictive.
So
Why
I
the
think what we're seeing is clearly labor market
Also, Financial
conditions have
Times,
cooled
good
off by any measure, as I talked about in Jackson Hole. But they're still at a level. The level of those conditions is actually pretty close to what I would call maximum employment.
Right.
You know, so
And
you're
they're
close
asking,
to mandate, maybe at mandate.
Isn't it going
on-
to keep
on
getting
that.
worse? I
So
understand
what's
where it is
driving
right
it?
now, Jerome Powell. They're asking you a different question.
Clearly, by many other measures, the labor market has returned to or below 2019 levels, which was a very good, strong labor market. The labor market bears close watching, and we'll be giving it that. Second quarter GDP, all of this indicates an economy that is still growing at a solid pace.
GDP is a lagging
So that
indicator.
should also support the labor market over time.
know that.
It
Don't
bears
bullshit a
watching and we're
bullshitter.
watching.
To follow up on that, what would constitute for you and the committee a deterioration in the labor market?
Damn,
You're
everybody's
pricing
asking
in,
about labor.
Basically, by the end of next year, 200 basis points of cuts.
Damn,
just to
everybody's like,
maintain
hey,
a
no,
higher
seriously, for
unemployment
real
rate.
though, job losses
Would
are
you be
rising.
moving
Can we
to
talk
a
about
more
that for real?
preemptive monetary policy style rather than as you did with inflation,
Damn, they were asking
waiting until
softballs
the
and then,
data gave you a
she
signal?
opened the floodgate.
No, we're going to be watching all of the data, right? So if as I mentioned in my
Got the same
remarks, if
answer
the
every
labor
time.
market were to slow unexpectedly, then
Unexpectedly.
we have the ability to react to that.
Rocking a hard place, Jerome.
We don't think we need to see further loosening in labor market conditions to get inflation down to 2%. But we have a dual mandate, and
Yeah, I heard.
I think you can take
I've
this-
heard about the
this
dual
whole
mandate,
action as-
JP.
You're describing this view that you don't think you're behind when it comes to the job market. Can you walk us through the specific data points that you found to be most helpful in the discussions
Just
at
keep
this
hammering
meeting?
him.
You mentioned a couple,
They
but
just
would you
keep
be able to walk
hammering
us
him.
through what that dashboard told you as far as what you know about the job market now?
Sure. So we'll start with unemployment, which is the single most important one probably. You're at 4.2%. You know, I know that's higher than we were used to seeing numbers in the mid and even below mid threes last year. But if you look back over the sweep of the years, that's a very healthy unemployment rate.
For
And
sure. He's in a loop now. Wrap it.
So very simply, what message are you trying to send American consumers, the American people, with this unusually large rate cut?
Yeah.
I would just say that, you know, the U.S. economy is in a good place, and our
That's the signal you're
decision
sending
today
with this
is designed to
emergency
keep it there.
large rate cut?
More
That
specifically,
things
the
are
economy
so
is
good
growing
we
at
have
a
to
solid
cut extra
pace
big?
and
That's
over
your
time.
message.
The U.S. economy is basically fine. If you talk to market participants, I mean, you know, business people who are actually out there doing business. So I think, I think our move is timely.
It's basically
I do.
fine
And as
if
I
you
said,
talk
you
to
can
business
see
people
our
out there doing
50 basis
business.
point move as a commitment.
Give me that clip. I'll put it. That's going to be great.
To make sure that we don't fall behind.
We
that
talk to
decision,
regular
but,
people,
you know,
Jerome Powell.
We might well have. I think.
Hey, why don't you talk
that's
to
not,
the
we
share
ask
of
ourselves,
U.S.
which is,
30-year-olds who
let's
live
look,
on their
at
own?
this meeting, we're looking back to
Way down,
the
or live
July
with a
employment
child,
report,
way
the
down,
August
or own a
employment
home,
report, the
way
two
down,
CPI
or
reports,
have ever
one of which
married,
came-
way down. Talk to
and
these
all the
people,
other things that I
Jerome.
meant. A good definition of price stability is that people in their daily decisions, they're not thinking about inflation anymore. That's where everyone wants to be, is back to
That's where we are for
what's
sure,
inflation.
Jerome.
You know, we just keep it low, keep it stable. We're restoring that. So
Yeah, nobody
what
talks
we're going
about
through
it.
now.
Nah, nobody
Really-
talks about it.
Would you have cut rates by 50 basis points if the market had been pricing in like low odds of a 50-point move like they were last Wednesday, after the CPI number came out?
Why did they
We're
go
always
from
gonna try to
gradual
do,
small cuts to
what
like
we
this
think
one
is the
big
right
jumbo
thing for the
cut?
economy at that time.
Why?
That's what we'll do. And that's what we did today.
He's done with it. He's done answering the question.
I don't see anything in the economy
He's
right
not
now
happy that she's saying the word
suggests
recession.
that the likelihood of a of a downturn is
He
elevated.
didn't want to say it. He didn't want to say it.
Okay, I
He
don't see
switches
that.
it downturn.
You
They
see-
hate
you
saying
see
the word
growth
recession.
at a solid
They
rate.
hate saying it.
You see
Oh,
inflation
they
coming
never
down. You see
say
a labor
recession,
market
bro.
that's still
so
at very
funny.
solid levels. It's
He-
so.
she
so
got her
I
to
don't
say
really
it.
see that. No, thank you.
Is he leaving? What a knockout punch of a question. So I've watched a lot of these. That was not a good one. Bro seemed a bit flustered. Didn't have a good answer to anything. Didn't have that Jerome Powell swagger or confidence. This is the idea. He's stuck between these two worlds. This is where we're at. And you could see that in this presser, dude. The dude just kept saying dual mandate, dual mandate, dual mandate. And I'm glad the questions were pretty good this time. People, they did not let him just, shrug it off.